Here tonight. I'm just gonna wing this. I really hate making presentations or PowerPoints and stuff. What I really like to do is just do a short introduction of myself and show some projects that I did over the years, like the past 25 years, and then just open everything up just to have a conversation and answer your questions if you have any. And otherwise, I can always talk more, but I thought it's nice to just open it up. I'll show you just some content that I did, and then and tell you what they are about, and then afterwards you can ask questions. So I'm Albert van Abbe. Again, I'm happy you came. I'm doing sound and music for the past 25 years. I started actually in a squatting area, so doing only illegal parties, and I had my own event series. I run a few labels. Yeah, I used to play very often. Now I play a little less because I'm also a creative director for Dekmantel. And let's say I grew in really small steps over this whole period. So I started just making records and actually traveling an event through Europe and doing a lot of illegal raves and festivals. That's literally just how I started. And things gradually got a little bit more serious and a bit more big. But I'll show you, I thought to just open some tabs instead of making a PowerPoint presentation and move to the newer clips. So the first one is me playing live in 2003 in Czech Republic on a Teknival. A Teknival is basically an illegal festival. Some of them used to be really big. So, for example, I played once where police helicopters were flying over. Yeah, and this is really old content. It's from 2003. I'm just showing this also because of context, you know. So that's me on the right. So yeah, this is 2003. It's two sound system from Prague. You can see below it's the name of the sound systems. Yeah, so, setups used to be like this. We always used to play live behind the crowd. So our monitoring set was actually the sound system. And there were a lot of people doing this for free. It was a free party. Yeah, Teknival was all about this free spirit. So you could go there for free. Everybody set up the stuff for free. And I played these raves for like 5 years. So I got to learn. I made all the mistakes that I could make because there's so much stuff that goes wrong, and there's like sand going into your equipment, and you carry your stuff through the forest, and yeah, a lot of stuff that went wrong basically. But that's how I slowly learned and got a bit more serious. And from the start, I was already doing a lot of collaborations with like light artists and video artists, or doing sound for theater, for example, so quite broad. This is a little clip of us playing in an empty a Lidl supermarket. It's also very low resolution. They will get better once we move through the clips. So we squatted a Lidl supermarket. I guess you guys know Lidl, right? So maybe you can also see the space. It's literally an empty supermarket, and a friend of mine used to have a lot of beamers and projectors. So we set up a space where it's 4 screens and projectors. This is 2005. And then we just sat there and did jams with live sound and live video. We were like 4 people. The project was called The Video Work Made Flash. And we were also doing, we were also touring with this. So I already played in Brazil, for example. Then now I'm moving a bit forward into time. I started to work more in this light art and video art field, doing more crossover projects, also collaborating with fine artists. So I landed this collaboration with Ricky van Broekhoven, and we started to doing this type of light installations. I'm just skipping through here because I just like to have the conversation about all these projects and not like make it very dry and look at all this data for a long time. You can always like find these projects of mine online, so you just need to dig a little deeper. This is actually a silicon snare, so it's an engine and there are stroboscopes below it. And because the silicon snare is turning really fast and we're projecting light on it, it looks like a 3D hologram, but it's actually just a silicon snare that's going around really fast and then with stroboscopic light on it, so you get this. And yeah, it looks like an animation. And this space was quite nice because it's a church, so we could hang the snare all the way in the top of the middle of the church, so it looks quite monumental. This is also one more famous clip that I did at Willem II Studios. It's an old vintage studio, so they have a 1950 space. Let me see if I can get a better... here you can see a little better. I'll show a piece of the clip, but I'll tell you about it first. So this place is really close to my hometown, only a 30-minute drive. They have a 1950 studio and a 1970 studio. It's called Willem II. You can also look it up. And there's one room, this 1950 studio, where they only have equipment that is pre-synthesizer hardware. So this stuff is not made for making sound, but it was used in the 50s to start making sound. So people like Stockhausen, I don't know if any of you know him, is like a modern classical artist. He started experimenting with this type of machines. And basically, every silver box that you see has a very simple function, and you can patch them together like a modular synthesizer and create sound with them. But again, they're measuring equipment, so they're not made for making sound, and they have basic functions, and they work in the audible range. It's a bit tricky, but it's really the heritage of electronic music, so some parts in this old stuff is made in the used in the first synthesizers, like some filters. And it looks like it's a submarine. And I'm just, taking 10 minutes. You probably know this series Against the Clock, right? When I saw this studio for the first time, I thought, well, I really need to do this Against the Clock there. It's a really exciting place, and it looks visually very nice. So I slowly build up towards making a song, sort of. But it's really hard just to make a beat. It's basically pulses triggering filter. So again, it's like trying to make sound out of machines that are not made for making music, or to they just happen to make sound somehow. You can ask a lot of questions about this after, so we can go a bit more into depth in this. Then in the pandemic, I started to develop hardware and software to play my own live performances, so I created the AI sequencer. It's also available in software form now. I'm collaborating with Ableton on it, and I also started developing software to play a live audio-visual set. And this is a project that I did solo at Next Museum in Amsterdam. I'm doing live sound, and I'm also doing live video at the same time. And Next Museum, they have this crazy setup with really big projectors that are mapped together, so it looks like one complete image, but it's actually separate video being projected into this space, so it looks like one image coming together. So it looks like I'm sitting in the video, but it's literally projected on top of me. Yeah, and obviously the museum was empty, so I called them and I said, I have this new software and you have a really great setup. Can I just come and do my stuff there? And they were excited because they're closed, and we didn't have anything to do, so I could make a good video registration of this. Yeah, but this software I just made for my own performance. So it's C++. I control it with a MIDI controller. I want to keep making steps with it, but I have less time now. The sequencer, this AI sequencer, will be available as part of some Ableton projects, so that will be publicly available. But this software is just for my own stuff. But if you want to use it, please just write me. This is just to show that I was doing this type of project, so very much collaborating in this AV field, still actually also DJing, making records, doing club nights, also playing live on separate different projects, but also doing this AV stuff. And that's how I landed a project as art director for Draaimolen Festival. It's in the south of the Netherlands. The owner called me and said, maybe you want to be art director of my festival. And I said, I don't know if that's something that I would like, but I thought about it. And after I thought about it for a long time, I thought, maybe I have a real good profile for this because I'm doing all this weird AV stuff, very broad. Nobody gets it. I can't communicate it on Instagram because it's way too many projects. But actually for art director for a festival, it makes sense because I have this broader scope. So that's how I started working for a Draaimolen, and this is the one of the projects that I did. I hope you don't mind, it's literally in my drive folder, but this is one of the projects that I'm quite proud of. I designed this with Daniel de Bruin. He's a really good Dutch prototyper. I went to him with the idea that I got from the owner actually of Draaimolen about a Rubik's Cube. And then I said, I really want this pyramid shaped that can have multiple rotations and fold in and out and have smoke and light and also completely controllable by the light artist. So there's a separate light artist for the festival that use this as an instrument. So there's, it's nice to use this type of object at the festival, obviously. It also works nicely on the chapel stage. So that's one of the projects that I was quite excited about. I'll show you one more that I did for Draaimolen together with Children of the Light because it's cool. This is also, there was one stage, there was a real big hole in the floor of the forest. It's called the pit, it's literally dug out. It's a big space. And we, together with Children of the Light, they had this idea to hang this set of fixtures on a system where you usually hang the camera on when you're shooting soccer games. So there's this advanced system to shoot soccer games. And we thought, it's really cool to make a light object out of this. So this light object could literally move all across the stage in all directions and up and down. And obviously you could do a lot of real cool effects with it. This is a clip. Yeah. This one still gives me goosebumps because it feels like a UFO landing and it feels like something is communicating with you or with the audience. I thought that was really cool, and it's also very minimal, so there's almost nothing there on the stage. It's just a forest, a real big pit, literally just dug out sand, and then just this light going above it. It was really nice to collaborate with the Children of the Light on this. They're a Dutch light artist. And then after this season, the owner of Dekmantel called me and said, maybe you want to start doing this stuff for us. It's quite a long story how I ended up there, but it was all sort of an escalation to me that I was all of a sudden part of this bigger Dekmantel crew. Dekmantel obviously does a lot of different festivals all across the world, and it's like 100,000 visitors a year. So I ended up doing 50 of this type of scenographies in the last 3 seasons, and they're all quite complex projects. So you can imagine it's a lot of work, but I'm learning a lot and it's really interesting. And this is one of the stages that I'm most proud of, is our main stage. It's a 6,000 capacity loop. It's an idea from Children of the Light that we produced. It's a custom scaffolding system. So it's obviously scaffolding is not made to build round. So it's completely custom built. And at Dekmantel, we really like to be really anal with this, the way we produce it. So we designed the way the cable should go around the scaffolding, and we're really precise in making this all look really tight. This season it's gonna even look better, I think. Yeah, it was Dekmantel 10 years, and we wanted to have something that is like full circle. So that's why we came up with this full circle moment. And there's some nice content also you can see online with videos, people playing like Ben UFO on the stage. Yeah, quite happy with this one. But this is the biggest one, and I did 50 different ones, so there's, yeah, a lot of different projects. We can dive into it deeper, but I'd be happy to just answer your questions. This is one of the, this is just simple. I have all the stuff on my website for you to check out. This is the landing page. It's just one light effect from the Children of the Light on this stage. It was quite epic. I'm really happy with this one. And then for the new season, we're also developing new stages and new designs. And I'm still doing this next to my music and sound. We can go into that too. So the disadvantage of me is that if you have to ask me questions, it's like you can ask me something about a compressor in sound or something, or some Ableton question, but also this more complex building projects. So I would say maybe some of you have questions. Then let's just start there. I didn't want to talk too much.
Hey, thank you for sharing all this. It's really interesting, and I think it's really so much cool stuff that it's kind of becoming difficult to follow each of them. So, yeah, my question is more general. You are now a creative director of Dekmantel, and how are you managing to you having like your artistic vision, because you were there like for so much, you saw a lot, you made a lot, and how you're balancing this your personal vision with all the other voices, because like it's probably a lot of conflicting kind of voices around, like everyone having like different opinions. It's a lot of navigating, I would say, and then you're achieving some specific result you have in mind probably, or you're more going with the flow. What's your process?
Yeah, that's a real good question. Obviously, it was a bit weird to start as art director, because then the scale is obviously a lot bigger. So first I was doing my own projects, and then I could control exactly how everything looks. If you start working for a festival, there's all these separate teams, and these projects are like building a house. It's most comparable with building a house, because there's so many different things that you need to take care of, even just placing the sound, and all the safety measurements that needs to happen for a stage. So it is a real big team. And as an art director also, you're not the creator anymore. That was also weird for me, because I used to make my own records and really do my own stuff. And now suddenly I'm working with design studios, and then we have a design, but then the audio company says, this setup you can't do in a stage design, it doesn't work like this. And then the local government looks at the permit and they say, the way you drew it now is really unsafe, and you need to do it this way and that way. So you definitely need to be flexible. But what I noticed with these bigger projects, like for example this one, the Children of the Light, they're really anal about it should be a circle. The idea is it's a circle. They can explain me on the phone. It needs to be a circle. And we want to have these squares. It needs to be a square light rhythm, and then a round circle, and they were really on it. It shouldn't be an egg, it shouldn't be square, it shouldn't be rectangle, it should be a circle. And I'm noticing with these bigger projects, it's really important that you have these type of details, you really hold on to them, because all the other stuff gets watered down, because you need to, in terms of production, it's just way too complex, the way all these parties have to come together. But then usually also the ideas that you can explain over the phone are the best ideas. So the ideas that I got from more talented designers, they explain me the idea over the phone, and we draw it for them. Like this one, the loop, we drew it for them mostly. And they basically said, I'm exaggerating now a little just to make the argument, right? But they said it needs to be a circle, and this is the idea that we have. And we made a drawing for them and started working from there. Yeah, that's why I also don't like to make presentations in PowerPoint, because then it seems like I need to sell somebody something. That's also very personal. I also don't believe in this. I believe in a good idea or a bad idea, and I don't believe in like sexy decks that sell somebody an idea. And some people want to have this deck, they want to have the deck, and they want to have this presentation of this sexy thing. And I'm just noticing, because of all these projects, that usually the best ideas are, yeah, I have this idea, and it's a circle for 6,000 people, and usually they end up being the most, I don't know, I call it singular. And it's just singular because it sticks out because it held on to these basic parameters. Is that a clear answer?
Hello. May I ask you, where do you dig for inspiration? Because as I get it, like you have multiple projects at the same time, and it gets like to be more like a full-time flex rather than just a thing that you do when you have inspo for that, and you have to be constantly in the shape. Where do you find it from?
Yeah, a lot of techno artists, for example, they get really inspired by a club night, so by the music itself. I don't have that at all, so I hate festivals. Dekmantel also knows that I hate festivals. So one of the first things that I said is, I really hate large crowds. I don't get the idea of a festival. I'm more of a club person, personally. But I think it's also good for a festival to have somebody outside of that hates festival, that says something about the design. So I definitely get inspiration from things that are way outside of all this. So maybe a museum visit and just life in general. And also, for example, traveling here is a real big inspiration. Just the vibe, just coming here, just being on the train, just having conversations with you guys, that's really inspiring to me. And that's more inspiring than going to another festival or seeing another DJ set. Obviously, I've been in this. I know techno since 25 years, so I know a little bit how it goes now. And I love it. I'm there for it. I'm also really happy to come play here tomorrow. But it's not necessarily where I get my inspiration. Yeah. Cheers.
Hello. My friend is organizing like a film festival, and I agreed to help her, and I would want to try my best in like art direction. And I have like experience in visual arts and in some sound creation, but what would you recommend to start from?
What type of art direction are you doing for the film festival?
Basically, I don't know, because it's really independent first steps film festival of short films.
And is the question mainly about designing the space, how it comes together, so how the movies are being presented and how people come together to watch those movies? Or is the question more about making a selection of which movies to show?
I was thinking of visual representation of the film festival.
So it's actually all together, right? Because in the end, it also makes sense that you think of the right space, the right time, the right space, the right movies, the right audience to make it all come together. For me, it's also interesting. For example, this is another project for me, the kick is to design the production and then have the right shot of that production. So for me, at the end, it's really about getting the right content. So some video of some DJ playing on that stage that we designed. So make it all come together. And it also works with the artwork for the festival. And then again, I think it comes from a really core idea or passion that you have personally. So I think it could be, I'm thinking of an example. Maybe you like a Rothko painting like some abstract painting that you like, and it gives you a certain feeling. And you dig into that feeling, and you know it's about some childhood memory. And then you think about why this childhood memory, or maybe it's a trauma for something. And I think if you can dig really deep into that, it's an umbrella for hanging everything on it. So it's a certain vibe, and you can tell a graphic designer this vibe, and they will make you the artwork that they need to make for your film festival. Or you have this vibe, it's like even just one painting, or some childhood memory that you can explain. Picking flowers in your grandma's garden, for example. And because you can explain it quite well, you know which movies to pick, and you know how the artwork is going to look, and you can pick a location for these films because you have a feeling what feels right for the audience in those films. And I guess if you continue making steps like that for a few years, you will narrow it down to making that all work. But it's quite complex, and it's also quite annoying about me that I show you all this in like 10 minutes, and it grew like, it's like, whoa, this is really big, and it's like it doesn't relate anymore. But it really starts really simple with this idea of me living in a van. Like I gave away all my stuff, and I wanted to live in a van and do this hardcore techno forever. And obviously that comes from somewhere, and that is a sort of passion and a drive. And I guess the better you can explain that and know about yourself, the better you can bring this all together. But it's not something that I think you can do in a few months. Is that an unclear answer, or is it?
Yeah, thanks.
Hey, nice to meet you. So my question is about you. You say a lot. You say a lot about that some of your works is not be legal. And my question about do you have some responsibility about your work? Is it be illegal in legal fields?
I mean, so in the past, everything was, it's actually a good question, because it's such a big difference. So it used to be, I used to play parties where some guy was in the corner on top of his van stripping copper from the building. So he's literally stealing stuff from the building while we were doing a rave on the other side of the same factory space. So nothing was legal about that. And obviously you try to make it in a safe way, but it's completely illegal. That's why this helicopter, police helicopter flying on.
Also, this is too illegal.
So that's why it's a good question. Now it's quite the opposite. So that's why I'm trying to compare it with building a house. For these projects, every day the local government comes, every day, and they need to see the drawings, and they will go with the production manager. They will go to every light and every cable, and if it's not like it's on the drawing, you're basically fucked. So it's like building a house, and it's very regulated in the Netherlands, which is also super sad. It's also very weird, and there's a lot of rules in this Dutch festival world. So for example, we know exactly how much CO2 we emit for the whole festival, and we know exactly how many waste we producing every festival. And we need to tell them how many kilos of waste are coming from this stage after the festival. So this is super boring, but for me also interesting because it's so regulated. It's crazy.
Cool, thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for the lecture. It was really inspiring, and I found for myself a few things that comes out of my mind, and it's really beautiful. My attention was attracted by your audiovisual performance, and I really interested in this kind of technical creation, you know. Because I assume that this kind of a complicated process, with a lot of people involved in to create this technical thing and then implement it into programs and other things. So it's really something unusual that I've never faced before. So I would be thankful if you dive deeper a bit into this.
Yeah, that's also a good remark, because I'm noticing as I'm getting older, sadly, I like to divide people into people that have the knowledge and the technical skill to do something, and you have people with ideas. And I used to think that you needed to be the people that have the ideas and can build it. I completely let this go. So I'm always saying, I can't do shit. I can make a beat in Ableton, and I know how to control this modular synthesizer, but it looks like I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what I'm doing. So basically I'm saying, I can't do anything. I just have a lot of ideas, and over the years I found people that are able to build it for me. And that's still the case now. So I have a real good production team. They draw this, all the details of it, and they come back with their drawings. So we can send the drawings to the supplier so they know exactly what to build. And also for the software, I just had an idea, some visual aesthetic, and an Italian friend made this software for me. So it's not like I needed to know how to write code, for example. With all the content that I'm showing, it also looks like I look very nerdy, but I can't do anything. I can do music, but I can't do anything in terms of, I don't know the architecture software, I don't know how to write code, I don't know how to write notes, I don't know how to read notes, I can't, so that's why I'm also trying to say that because I'm showing relatively big projects, that's just because I'm older and I grew into this. This doesn't mean that you need any technical skills. That's why I also didn't really want to sit here and do an Ableton workshop, which we could have done, because I don't really believe in it just being about technical stuff. You could buy, I always give this example, you could buy a real good sound recorder and be in the forest, and you have a thing with a certain bird, and you record them for an hour, and you could be that artist that just records that bird and puts it on Bandcamp and makes it look really good, and it's really sexy, cool, artistic project, very conceptual, and then you start doing museum shows, but it was just you with a sound recorder. It's just not, and it's definitely sound art. So the technical skill, it's nice if you have it, obviously, but then it's also good to think about, do you maybe need people that have good ideas and for you to be more on the technical side, or am I on the other side? And some people, like Robert Henke is the best example. I think he's one of the few people that can really build it and also have this artistic vision, but I think there's very little people that have both, very strong. And that's why I also really like to collaborate, because, for example, this software, I could never do this visual software. It's way too complex. But this guy made it in C++ in a few days for me. Quite quick.
So it take just only 3 days to implement it, and how long does it start? Like from idea, coming to your mind, and for looking for this guy who can make this kind of technical part, and what things was you inspired to have this idea?
Yeah, so it's different for every project. I also want to give a bit of context. If I make music, I can do a song in an hour, and I like to do a song in an hour because then I don't think about it too much. So then it's just an hour, just a nice sound idea and building a song. And for this project, it's 1 year. So it's really a big extreme. And for these bigger projects and also the software, I need to also pay for it, right? And that's a whole separate subject. So how do you pay for things? Maybe sometimes you have friends, and I would really recommend, like I did in the squatting days, to have friends that want to help out for free, and then you can get quite far just with a lot of passion and everybody who's just working for free. But once everything gets a bit more professional, you need to also think about how to maybe apply for funding, right? So that's what I also did as a Dutch artist. I applied for funding to have this project. So in the pandemic especially, there were some small grants. So let's say I could apply for 3,000 euros to do this project. And I needed to explain, obviously, who am I, what's my profile, what do I want to do exactly, when do I want to do it, with whom do I want to work, what is it going to cost. Then I did a small funding application, and I got some money to build this and play it in Next. Yeah, you also have to get used to that, obviously, but you can definitely start like I did in the squatting days, just by just doing things. And that's what I really liked about this squatting area, and it's harder now because you need to rent a space. But back then, because of the squatting, I had the idea that we always had space. And with younger people, they might think, oh, I need to pay my friends if they work for me, or I need to pay a space because I need to do some work there. And somehow this was never a thing in my head, and I still feel like that. So I still feel like I have a lot of space to create, but that's just because we literally broke open. I still know how to change locks and open, break open the doors of buildings. Just because, it was a thing that you needed to learn to do your parties and stuff. But that's a certain mentality, right? Of just, I'm just going, or same with graffiti. I also traveled to Ukraine 20 years ago to do graffiti. I passed the space actually with Nastya this morning where I did the graffiti close to the railway station. But this idea of doing graffiti is also really embedded in me just because of the fact that you could have a marker or a spray can and just go outside and do something. And this is very natural. Just
fast graffiti. It's not a large work, it's fast on the
usually my work was really fast. And I painted trains in Ukraine back then with some crew from Odessa and from Kiev. That's why I also have good vibes when I come here. But it's just to explain the idea that that gave me the feeling that I could just do anything, because then if you put a tag up, which is some people think it's shitty, and that's also valid, but at least for the person doing that, they have a certain freedom because they think they can do that. And obviously it's not always legal, but I like that idea of freedom and moving from this passion and just energy and just trying to do things.
Can I ask an additional question? Also, you mentioned about funding, and I think like the funding is an important part of support of local culture. And I want to understand, was it like a government organization or non-government organization that just support local art? Was like European Union art or some local organization?
That's also very broad. Because I've been doing this for a few years. So if you start digging, there's a lot of different funds. Obviously, the European ones are a lot bigger, but you need to do a proper project and application. It takes a lot of time, and you need a good fundraiser to help you write this text. It's quite complex, but also interesting. What I also noticed, there's people that have money that like to spend it. So there's people that like to be involved in creative ideas. And there might be, especially once you get older, there might be a friend that just sells his company, and it's a way to also fund things. And I also think that's underestimated. Maybe you have a friend that's just into crypto, and it's easier for him to fund your digital art project. So it's also interesting to look at this a bit more wide, like there's multiple ways to make sure you have some money to build your project.
Hi.
Hi.
So the question that I have after listening to you is that you kind of talk about your life in terms of the previous period of your life and the current period of your life. So the question is, what do you miss from the previous period of your life that you would want to have now? And what do you know now that you wish you knew in that period of your life? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the first one is about letting go what you did. Obviously, you try to do a lot of different projects and you also grow out of them a bit. So it's like a natural growth, and once you've done them, you want to do new things. And one of those new things is scalability. So sadly, those are also, there might be bigger projects because you did smaller projects. That's not always positive, but to me it doesn't feel negative. And the other question was even better. That's the other way around. But can you?
Yeah, so what do you miss from previous period? And in the previous period, what you wish you had that you have now? You know, just like puzzles taken out from
Yeah, I
each
get
side,
it.
and yeah.
But for the other side, I might have the same. That's a positive paradox where I wish I didn't know anything then, and I'm happy to let go what I did now. So they relate to each other in a nice way. The smaller projects and this squatting taught me something about what I'm doing now. And what I'm doing now makes me feel okay with this past. For example, I'm playing less, but I'm also noticing that after 25 years of this pounding techno, I start to have hearing problems. It's not huge, but I have some hearing problems in my right ear, just a little bit, and I don't want them to escalate. So it feels good that I need to let go of playing every week. There's some more downsides of, No, so I think they relate quite nicely together, but it's a really good question, so I need to think about it a bit more.
If you want, you can answer by the end of the lecture.
Yeah, I'm going to think about it. Cool.
Yeah, do you have any specific thoughts on what's happening with the scene in the world right now? How do you think, in which state it is? Is it a crisis? Because some people started talking about this, and there are always complaints, some people thinking that just it's not as it was before in 2000, add your number, and then you can, in some way, there is really something happening, a lot of clubs closing, for example, in Europe, but a lot of clubs opening, and maybe are these clubs, and for example, there is this amazing space where in now, which is completely separated from, not completely separated, but just I think standing in a separate, separate column, especially during all the circumstances and how difficult it is to come, for example, and you now know how, at least long, and how you think what state the scene is now and where are we going, what do you like to preserve in it, and that's kind of the general approach.
Yeah, that's the most complex question, right?
Sorry.
Yeah, but it's also very valid. I often want to say right now that I don't know anymore. So I've been through different phases, also different sounds that are also similar to hypes right now. For example, also people didn't really like Schrans, which is very similar to hard techno right now. Obviously, we didn't have social media in this Schrans area, but techno also had really bad phases. Also where people didn't want to be associated because it was all this loop techno that was very uncool. Minimal also had had a bad rap. Also, this electro pop, right? This also had a bad rap. So, what's nice to say about this? I think there's always something to complain about. I guess, it's a bit esoteric to say to stick to your own guns and stick to your own energy and passion, and don't get drifted away on people complaining. But essentially, people not being busy with themselves. In the end, people should stick to their passion and their drive, and not make it more complicated. But obviously, it's very visible now, so it's even more visible. So the question is even more valid, or it seems more valid.
Yeah, thank you. We'll see.
Okay, I've got one question from online. After all these years in electronic music, has your definition of innovation changed? So what does being innovative means to you today compared to when you first started?
Yeah, I think shifted, or he's called Carrier now. He had a label called Avian, and the tagline was like future-facing electronics. I really like this idea or concept of future-facing, and I guess that's what we always did, and what we're trying to do with Dekmantel now too. And there's always a next step in what's possible. I can give you an example. For example, there's the standard stage barriers in front of all stages. It's called a mojo barrier, and we're trying to replace them with our own design. It's a small step, but I really like it. It looks a lot better, so I'm really happy with this small innovation. And one other really good example is that the first clip that I showed and this sound system was really bad. Sound has become a lot better and a lot more powerful, also a lot worse for your ears. And personally, I'm also just interested in, oh yeah, what are the possibilities right now? That's why it's nice to know people that are very technical, because they know what type of new lights are out, or which software is really cool, or they just started to learn some new software package and can make it work. Yeah, it also ties into collaboration nicely, I think. Cheers.
Tanya? Anybody? Okay, so I've got one more from online. When you're starting a new project, right, be it a sound piece or visual work, do you prioritize the idea, the feeling, or the technique? What's the first impulse of this? So it's the idea or the technical stuff?
It's definitely not the technical. Okay. I think it's really important if I keep doing workshops, I will keep repeating this. It's really important to start with why. Just why, we were talking about this earlier. If you can go really deep in this why, that's the most important question to make art. What's even better, I heard from Brad Downey, it's actually a street artist. He learned this in art school. If you can make it about, if you know why now, if you can make it relate in the current time frame, then you have a real good art piece. But for yourself, it starts with why, and then always afterwards comes what and how. And they should be separated in my brain at least. So it's definitely first starting with a why. And I'm never getting this how, so the technique involved with this. Also, so that's why I don't want to talk with suppliers too early on, or for example, photographers that might have a lens that can capture my idea really well. That's really interesting to talk about that lens and what the new aspects of this lens is, or the new features in Ableton. But to me, it's not where it starts. To me, it starts where, about your feeling and your why. Why you're sitting down and doing Ableton? Why do you want to record? Why do you want to post it? Why do you want to do photos? Why do you want to build something? And I think this why question is also typical artist thing, I think, to continue annoyingly into this why question, but I think it's interesting, always an interesting question to ask.
Yeah, so it's like why or for what, right?
Yeah, and then the what and how comes later. So the technique is definitely later.
Okay, great. Got questions? Yeah.
Hey, and then how do you communicate these whys to other people? Because you work with a large team. It looks complex because it is complex. And you said you have like 50 projects in 3 seasons.
Yeah.
That's crazy. How do you communicate it to the team? What's your best ways to approach that?
That's also a really good question, because it's so many projects, and then certainly it's about maybe a complete festival site or the complete festival, and how the photography and videography and artwork and graphic design also all tie into this one concept. And then when you think you get very primal really quickly, because it's way too much. So I keep mentioning Stonehenge as you guys all know Stonehenge, right? And festivals being done there for maybe thousands of years. And they were really about celebrating the sun being at a high point. So those are usually my references, at least for Dekmantel when I started thinking about them. We do a spring festival, so the whole scenography was about sprouting and the start of the season, like this period, and flowers starting to blossom, and also the talent from the club season coming into this festival world, so you can show and showcase new artists on your festival in this same vibe. So for me, it was easier to explain using the sun as an analogy for all scenographies and where the festival was placed in the timeline of the year. So our festival in Croatia is more about the sunset. It's the end of the festival season. We have a lot of photos with the sun setting, and it's more indirect light. And also this idea of indirect light, you can also use in terms of scenography and stage design. Yeah.
Okay, basically, what's in your opinion is the future of Dekmantel?
Well, it's not only me, because I'm only responsible for how everything looks. So it's really a team effort.
It's a huge part also.
Yeah, but I can name one example. We did a small collaboration with the opera, so the Dutch National Opera. We did a small festival where artists from the opera collaborated with Dekmantel artists. And now we're speaking with the director of the National Ballet. And we really want to do a co-production in the next few years. And that's also my personal passion, to make this, build these bridges between institutions. So we're having a conversation with the National Ballet to do a proper co-production that would travel the world in a few years. So it would be trying to get the best artists from this Dekmantel background and the best scenographers and what we think is the most interesting artists from this ballet field to collaborate on a new project together.
Okay, that sounds huge, yeah. Guys, yeah?
Hi. Do you provide a clear technical brief for the festival, for technicians, sorry, or do you leave room for creativity? And do you use reference from other festivals?
I try to not, actually it's also nice to remember, I don't compare myself to anybody, and I also always tell anybody to not ever compare yourself with anybody else. So that also in terms of festivals, I would never do anything that any other festival would try to do, or at least steer clear. It's all the same stuff, so in the end it looks like each other anyway, but I don't try to use it as a reference. And then in terms of technical brief and keeping some creativity in it, once it's produced, when I come on site, and this is for 20,000, little under 20,000 people this site, we have 8 stages. When I make my rounds on site every day, I don't see anything that I didn't see on a drawing. So nobody is doing anything just to try to do some little creative things by themselves as a thing. And that's just because of the scale of it. So there's no space for the small creative things. And for example, in the squatting area, there was always a guy making with oil something on the walls and projecting with the old, how do you call those old projectors, and improvising something, just being there, or making noise with some hardware that he found. That's not what we do with Dekmantel, just because of the scale. I like both in their own right. So all the briefing, also for the light operators, they're specifically briefed to sort of have a style for these few hours, or have a certain style for a certain DJ. And I told them, or we told them, approximately how they build up during the day. That's also quite complex.
No, thanks. Yeah. It's very interesting.
Cheers.
I have another philosophical question. Okay, so if I ask you about the past and the present, so the new question is, what is your why that moves you forward?
Yeah, I always try this, also a bit esoteric. I used to use it in art school. I think a lot of answers for people are in themselves. So eventually, now the projects are a bit bigger, so I can't control them fully. But my own projects were always about bringing people a bit closer to themselves. And that's what also techno can do. It's like cradling you, right? Techno. And I like this cradling because it just, you get, it's like a cocooning thing, and it makes you focus on yourself and your own feelings. And I think a lot of answers in general in life are within yourself. So I try to make stuff that makes people be closer to themselves. That's the idea.
Anybody? Okay. So maybe some few words for the dreamers.
Yeah, I think I mentioned most of it, right? I think I've shown some smaller and some bigger projects, but it's not really about the scale. That's also interesting to say. I also noticed lately it's really about this intent. So it's not actually about scale at all or the work at all. It's about this intent. And the closer you can stick to this intention, the better the work usually is. And in the end, it's also not about this work. So in the end, it's more about you and your intention. So the closer you can get to this why, and the closer you can get to this intention, and the better you can communicate about this, the better the material will be. And it's also easier for you to not step in with your ego, hopefully, even if the scale gets bigger, because just the intention feels nice and it feels close to what you want to do. And then the rest you can sort of let go. It's not really about the scale in this project. I think that's interesting too. Yeah. Thanks.